We're here to make a new type of news.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Making news just for you. It's April 22nd here in Seoul. I'm Shin-Yun, and you're watching News Generation. Joining me in the studio is Cheska Dain-hong.
Happy Monday, everyone!
Happy Monday, and Jo Yeon-woo.
Happy Monday.
Good morning. Now, both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. As usual, let's start with our news feed, which covers different hashtags and news items that have been trending on social media over the past 24 hours. Exercising regularly is important, but excessively working out can take a toll on your joints regardless of how old you are. According to a report released by the Sports Safety Organization, those in their 20s and 30s surprisingly had weak joints as if they were in their 60s. The study analyzed the cause of these weak joints to be vigorous exercise like yoga, Pilates, and hiking without proper stretching beforehand. 1 out of 3 people surveyed in the study reportedly did not do any pre-stretching exercises. SM Entertainment and Kakao Games Corp recently signed a partnership to create a mobile game featuring their artists' intellectual property. The game, tentatively named Game Station, is set to be launched globally in the second half of this year. Users will be able to manage artists' schedules, promote new albums and projects, and nurture new K-pop idols in the game. We've already seen many K-pop idol-related games in the past, showcasing stars like BTS and Blackpink. Industry insiders pointed out that though they have a buzz in popularity momentarily, they fail to hold on to longtime users, mainly because the game seemingly failed to find the middle ground between satisfying fans while being entertaining as games themselves. And the Korean occult thriller Exuma is receiving criticism from animal rights activists for using actual animals and their carcasses in its production. The Korea animal rights advocates on Friday said they asked the movie's producer and distributor Showbox whether any actual animals were harmed. In the movie, 2 shamans, a feng shui expert and mortician, performed a shamanistic gut ritual that requires killing, stabbing, and slitting animals. And Kata found out the production used 5 pig carcasses. They were then used in the scene where actress Kim Go-eun stabs them as a sacrifice to the supernatural beings. And actual fish were also found to be used in the scene where they were thrown on the ground as live bait. And the production explained that they returned all the pig carcasses and live animals, including chickens and dogs, to either their owners or rental organizations after filming. As for the fish, though, they said some were put back in water after filming, but some died due to the filming delays. And Kara has since condemned the production and urged officials to create guidelines for safely using animals in media production. Now, Exuma has been a popular hit movie in Korea, and I don't know if you've seen it, Hyunwoo, but there were a lot of animals that appeared. So as a viewer, what do you think about this news story, and what are your thoughts on the whole unraveling of animal rights activists?
Right, it's definitely unfortunate that carcasses and live animals were used in the production of this film, and especially in the absence of any guidelines during its production. But I can still understand why the producers had to make such a decision in the first place, because, you know, while they could use computer graphics, it does help with adding a sense of realism, I guess, for both the producers and actors. I know that for some movies, actors or producers will refuse to use any computer graphics and always try to stick to the real thing. But for the case of animals, I guess there could be some debate and conflicts between keeping artistic liberty and also respecting ethical standards for animals. So in the future, it's probably best that, you know, they implement responsible guidelines with working with these animal rights organizations.
And do keep in mind, this is just like a fact of the day. The movie industry does have guidelines from 2020. A lot of them had interviews with animal rights activists as to what to do to ethically perform all these production when it includes actual animals. But the thing is, there's no regulations or penalties in regards to what should happen if anyone goes against them, which is why animal rights activists are calling for the government to take action. Now, Cheska, what are your thoughts on this story?
You know, it's a very tricky issue, and for someone who has actually made a movie, I do understand why some directors and producers do choose to use something that might be controversial for the purpose of the artistry. However, at the end of the day, in my personal opinion, is that art exists to serve humanity at the end of the day. So if there are ways that we can maneuver in terms of using synthetic, computer graphic, or even prosthetic to replace harming the world, including animals and humans in the future, I think that would be something that would be more highly advised in terms of the development of the art itself. As for regulation, I completely understand that they have guidelines, and sometimes it is hard not to, you know, have people sort of follow through or even check if they are. I really hope that there is regulation and maybe some follow through to see if they are ethically following these rules to make something that might benefit the humanity.
We need to better monitor whether this is actually happening at the scenes. But then again, it is understandable, and I think you can agree as a movie producer yourself, sometimes the scene is just so busy and bustling and you're so short on time. But I do think this is something that we need to be more attentive about. Now, switching gears to our main discussion topic of the day, did you know today is IT Day, Information Technology Day in South Korea, where we commemorate how far our science and tech advancements have come in the country. And speaking of ICT and tech, we're going to be talking about the chatting apps that have been booming here in the country. And KakaoTalk is one of the most popular messenger apps in South Korea, but recently, as we've also covered in our newsfeed before, there has been an exodus of users. So Cheska, why don't we start there?
Yeah, this was a very shocking revelation for me because I am a very avid Kakao user.
Yeah, me too.
We chat on Kakao as well. And given that Kakao is the #1 messaging app here in South Korea, the fact that there has been some exodus of users was very shocking. Now, according to the data and analysis solution, KakaoTalk's monthly users fell below 45 million for the first time in 22 months since March. Now, that's a 2 million drop from March last year. Now, if you know the Koreans' national messenger history, we would like to walk you through. It started from MSN, then went to Genie, then Say Club, and I think around this time people might be familiar with this word, the buddy buddy, with a little character, and then Naton, and now the Kakao has become obviously the #1 messenger here in South Korea. I think a lot of the things, the reason that a lot of users have diverted to other is because the Gen Z and MZ generation are diversifying their messaging option. As we'll talk about more, Instagram is there, Facebook is there, WhatsApp. So people are trying to diversify their messaging, and hopefully we'll be able to talk more about it.
But there is a concept in Korea called 국민앱, and in English it means like an app that all Koreans or the public seems to be using, and KakaoTalk has definitely solidified its position there. But Hyunwoo, weren't you quite fascinated to find out that not a lot of people are using this app anymore?
Right, yeah. So what we're really seeing is, I guess, a diversification of messenger apps and social media as people look for kind of different platforms to use depending on their use cases. And as a Korean, KakaoTalk still takes up a large portion of how I reach out and talk to others. But today, it almost feels like the primary reason that I use KakaoTalk is because of the sheer number of people that use it in Korea. You know, no matter who you're talking to, they'll probably have KakaoTalk on their phone.
Right.
And so for general communication purposes, KakaoTalk is still, you know, it does the job perfectly fine. But I think that a lot of people have moved on to other platforms because it fits their needs much better. And look at Instagram, for example, which allows you to share and post content with each other, and Telegram or WhatsApp, which have far more global audiences than KakaoTalk.
Right, and as you mentioned, just because a lot of people are using it, I think you naturally feel the need to download it yourself, because what better way to communicate with someone than using that common option out there? And KakaoTalk, in the same survey, I saw it as well, they said that a lot of people use it at the workplace, so it's really hard for us to substitute it. But nonetheless, we are seeing a diversification of chatting apps and messenger apps out there, which is exactly why I'm curious as to ones that you guys personally opt for. What are some ones that are gaining a lot of popularity among our generation?
Oh, okay. Before we get into that, I would like to personally confess that I'm sort of the older generation when it comes to using Messenger's app. Not that I am, but my preference, because I use what Koreans might not be so familiar with. So the two that I use is WhatsApp and LinkedIn.
Right.
So I know people see these two apps are more in a professional way. And when I want to communicate with people and talk about business or even just building connection, I use these two and then give them my ID. And as some viewers have already noticed, I display my LinkedIn ID instead of my Instagram. So for me, Instagram and Facebook is more for casual meetups or like casual connections with friends or sending like cute memes or like posts. And I have a lot of startup friends that actually use Telegram because the storage space I heard is very extensive. Now, a lot of MZers now use Snapchat to communicate a lot because they can send photos and, you know, connect with friends. And another thing that I found very interesting that is coming up right now that I Googled right before coming on, they do a lot of voice messaging these days as well. Yeah.
Because it must be a little lazy for them to type everything down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So now they're trying to make it easy and quick as possible. Yeah.
You know, I'm a big fan of voice recording myself because sometimes I prefer calling. Maybe I'm an old millennial too.
You can come to my side.
I know there's this concept where MZers have phone phobia, but I don't have phone phobia. I would rather much prefer hearing someone's voice and talking via voice message. But it's quite interesting to find out that there's so many more options out there. And among those options, which ones are your favorite and what seems to be booming in popularity among our generation?
You know, that's actually really interesting to hear. I didn't really know about the voice messaging thing. Maybe it's just me falling behind the times.
Well, you are a Gen Z.
That is true. But,
Come on, Yana, you have to keep up.
yeah, I'm gonna have to try my best at this. But you know, looking at a lot of my Korean friends, I think we used to, use a lot of Facebook Messenger because it was the time where most people had Facebook accounts already and used it to share posts with other friends, which is, I guess, a pretty stark difference to how Facebook is viewed in, countries like the US, for example, where Facebook is seen as a platform for old people, to put it kind of harshly. And when Instagram came along, that kind of, I guess, felt trendier and more genuine with features like stories that really appeal to, a wide range of people. And I would say for me and my friends, it's the Messenger app that we used the most to this day. And it's really not Instagram that we only use. Personally, I've used like Discord, which is a community-based messaging app.
Right.
For meeting new friends that have common interests and common groups. And it's like the modern return of like chat groups or like forums. And I've seen more and more people use it over the years.
So based on my analysis, based on your two answers, I think because you can share your reality or daily lives via picture or video on these new apps and then instantly reply with a meme or an emoji or any chats, I think that's what seems to be a distinctive trait that's grabbing the attention of millennials and Gen Z these days. But what are some other traits?
Yeah, I really love the point that you made. I think it has a lot to do with our characteristic of wanting to share our personal lives, but in a way that is as interesting and entertaining as possible. So it comes in the form of emojis, it comes in the form of like links, it comes in the form of AI technology. So I think when it comes to MZers, that's definitely one of the characteristics. Another thing I think is they're not afraid to diversify their options.
Right.
Meaning that if I can't fulfill my needs in one, they're willing to give other apps an option. So instead of just having Kakao to send messages or send photos, if perhaps they like to play games, they would rather have a Discord where they can have a community of people that they can connect very quickly.
I think it also has to do with how much you can immerse with them. Like, it's a community, right? So you can share the same post and then talk about it.
Right.
You guys can add your own reels to it, your own replies. I think that's another play culture among our generation. Now, Hyuna, would you like to add on to this question?
Sure. I think that a big part of the culture that a lot of the MZ generation, as we call it, share is that a big part of it is the generational disparity that comes with it as well. Looking at like iMessage, for example, I've seen a lot of my friends actually move over from like Androids to iPhones because of what we call the green bubble versus blue bubble debate.
Right.
You have phones using, iPhones exactly, where they see their messages sent to other iPhones using blue bubbles, but Android phones are seen as green bubbles. Because young people tend to use iPhones, there's a divide depending on the generation, on what phone you use, even a tendency to actually, when looking for like a partner, for example, they prefer people using iPhones. So it's definitely an interesting cultural and generational divide that we're seeing nowadays as well.
I see. So there is that tendency to know that if the younger generation is using it, so will we. So these are some distinctive traits that can get more people onto these new social media apps out there, or messenger apps. Now, we asked our viewers to also share their favorite messenger apps and what traits they have to make them use them on a daily basis. If you take a look at the screen, you can find out what 3 of them had to share with us. Let's start with Benny. Benny said, "For me, still Facebook Messenger and Instagram from Meta are probably some of the top chatting apps in the Philippines, perhaps the way they're super talkative and sharing stories and gossip." Leon said, in Singapore, the most used chatting app is WhatsApp. One of the core functionalities is that sending and receiving text messages, photos, videos, and voice notes are all free of charge as long as you have internet connection. Also, you can create group chats for communication with multiple people, and the app follows for voice and video calls. Bora said, "For me, still Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp, app. However, I'll try KakaoTalk and others just to learn Korean. And based on what Bora just told us, you can really tell that KakaoTalk is a booming and one of the most popular chatting apps here in Korea. Now, we're going to turn to a fellow Gen Z from France to hear what type of chatting apps are gaining popularity there. Stay tuned for our live interview. We're now going to talk to Marie Clemens-Horticott, a Gen Z living in France. Welcome, Marie.
Hello.
All right, Marie, we've been talking about the most popular app here in Korea, which is KakaoTalk, but our generation seems to be using a diverse amount of them. So could you first explain to us what the most popular or common messenger app is in France at the moment and why that's the case?
I think that nowadays the most common chatting app here in France is Instagram. It used to be Snapchat for a long time, but now it's mostly teenagers or middle schoolers. But I still have it, but it's not really the hype right now. I think it shows the willingness of the users to share their lives, as you said, and their faces in real time to their friends or even to someone else. And sadly, it created a lot of expectations and a lot of complexes. And that's why you can see a lot of beauty filters on these apps too. However, we still use WhatsApp and messengers as much as you, I guess. But they are used for very different purposes, such as group chats, family group chats, friend group chats, or even formal conversations with your work. And we can also note the growth in the Discord community since the 2020 lockdown, but it's mainly for gaming.
So we're also curious because our generation are definitely not afraid to diversify, as you mentioned, into many different messenger apps. So what are some distinctive traits in the popularly used messenger apps that our generation, including yourself, are looking for?
I think that there are three major things to think about when you're looking for a new app. And the first one is the appearance. It has to be pretty, and it has to have pretty functionalities such as backgrounds or cute emojis that you can customize according to your personality or your mood of the day. The second one will be also about functionalities, but it has to be easy to understand and easy to use. The best example would be to be easy to send a file and to find it maybe 1 year later on the same conversation. And same goes for photos, videos, or even messages you've sent in this conversation. And the last one, as you said, is the voice notes. We communicate a lot by that. And it's a must nowadays to be able to communicate really fast without having to type your message. And I think that luckily, most apps have this functionality now.
All right, and Hyunwoo, would you like to ask the last question?
Sure. I think you've raised a lot of, important traits for a lot of the messenger apps that, millennials and Gen Z, including yourself, look for. Any updates or new features that you'd like to see in these apps? Or, what do you think would be needed to better use messenger chat apps from our generation?
From my point of view, I think that KakaoTalk is a good example to take, because they have a lot of different emojis that you can buy from small businesses to send in your conversation. And it's really cute and really funny to have. Also, they have an easy to use and really pretty interface, I think, with voice notes, which represent the three things that I search the most on every chatting apps. But at the end of the day, I think the most important here is the safe place the app has to create. We have to feel safe while chatting. Yes. And regarding the use of these different apps, I think that the key is to use them for different purposes, such as Snapchat, Instagram, and KakaoTalk for chatting with friends, sending memes and publications. Sometimes Kakao can be used for work businesses, I guess, too. And WhatsApp and messengers or sometimes for group chats, I guess, here in France with your friends, your family, or sometimes your workplace. And we also use a lot Twitter for news and trends, I guess, but also for chatting, and a lot of Discord for gaming, as I do with my friends. But I think that if we manage to separate each of these apps, we will gain a lot of time and we'll be able to dissociate our different environments.
So it's quite fascinating to hear that you don't want to see like a new app come out. You just want to see better classification as to when we use different apps for different scenarios. And you mentioned a great point there. I think the common thing that we're all looking for is safety and security. We don't want our data or privacy to be leaked in any way. And hopefully with the advent of such chatting apps coming about and developing, we'll see more of that. But in the meantime, thank you so much, Marie. It was a pleasure hearing from you today.
Thank you too.
All right. And Marie from France really pointed out all the different types of qualities we're looking for chatting apps out there. But I'd like to ask our panelists before we end off what type of chatting apps or traits they would like to see boom in popularity from now on.
I mean, she brought up some really good points, but obviously whatever the app is, security and privacy I think is #1 issue. But when it comes to the future, I think sort of the polarization in the Messenger app, meaning I think there's going to be definitely a growth of the metaverse that has been coming a lot, meaning that it's not so much a messenger app, but it's more of the platform or the space that the communication actually takes place. Meaning that people will probably take on different identities, different characteristics, and try to communicate on the metaverse level, probably would be one. The other one, which is I think kind of my personal hope, is that we go a bit more old-fashioned. And we go back to like trying to connect with people more, and then try to spend even less time on the messenger app and actually meet people in person.
I know, that seems to be key, but it's so hard to do given the fact that we're on our phones every day. It's like another part of our body, basically. Hyuna, what are your thoughts on that?
I think that big name messenger apps, you know, like KakaoTalk, Instagram, are definitely here to stay, but there will be more messenger apps that fill various niches and various use cases that will be trending in the future. People will probably get used to, you know, using multiple chat apps for different purposes, but one trend that has already boomed and I see will continue to boom is AI. People can now talk to, you know, chatbots and messengers at any time of the day without waking up their friends at the middle of the night, which have their own like personalities and appearances too, like real people. And there's tools that also help you with like your tone and formality when talking to your boss or your professor, for example. And these can help with kind of the conversational tools that you use in everyday, you know, life. And some of these developments are, you know, in a way, definitely technological advancements that should be appraised and applauded for. But they're also worrying because we're increasingly moving away from, you know, talking to other people, starting from face-to-face to even online now. So hopefully I see, and hopefully I want to see these technologies being used for good use in the future.
And I think that point aligns with what you just said, Cheska, that you want to see more interpersonal communication, but the advent of AI might be hampering that, right?
And as Hyuna mentioned, there are definitely benefits to it because now they're installing these AI chatbots for elderly who live alone or people who do not have the opportunity to actually go out and meet person. But one thing that I would like to add is even the messenger apps and the AI technology do advance, the AI technology itself has to be fueled by human knowledge and how we interact with human beings. So I do hope that even with the development of AI, the level of humanity and the humanitarian connection do also increase at the same time.
I agree. And I think the message today is no matter what app you use, just realize that what are we doing this for? It's just to communicate with either your friends or family, share a little glimpse of your life with your loved ones. So at the end of the day, safety is always key, data privacy is key, and all these cool different functions are very important as well. But understanding that you're communicating with an actual person seems to be a very important part, and hopefully that all apps really understand the essence of that. Now, in the meantime, we'll be here every day from 9:30 to 10 a.m. Korea time, bringing you more topics young people are talking about. Special thanks to Cheska Dainang.
Pleasure's always mine. Thank you.
And Joanna.
Thank you for having me.
All right, and thank you everyone for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. We are News Generation.